Everyone, I'm Zoe. I'm from Doceo Tuition. So, a bit about my education background. So, I went to a state secondary school, and I was able to do quite well. And then I moved on to a grammar sixth form. I went to Durham University to study. I did an integrated master's in electronic engineering, and then I met Steph at university, and now I work as a technology consultant in IBM.
And a bit about my background. So I'm Steph. I went to two secondary schools. So at first I went to a state secondary school, and then I moved to a grammar school in year 10. And then I went to a different grammar school for sixth form as well. And then I went to Durham and I met Zoe at Durham. And I've just finished my master's in law, and I'm going to start my training contract next year.
So just to give a bit of an introduction as to why we started Doceo. So my experience going to a state school and being around maybe not an environment that nurtured me academically, but I was still, motivated to escape that system so I could get the grades to move beyond it. When I got to university, I thought I might be the only Black female on my course, but I was the only Black person on my course. And that was a new experience for me. It's not something, at sixth form, I was a minority. So there were only maybe 4 Black people in our year, but to be the only Black person on the course, initially that was very, a bit overwhelming. I didn't know how I'd be able to, relate to anyone, but I was able to make great friends, and I was still able to, connect with people. But one thing that my university experience did teach me was being bold and being confident, because I had to do that to be heard in anything. And whilst all throughout my education, I focused on academics. I did a few extracurriculars, but I didn't focus on too much else. And by the time I, was in uni, I realized I'm about to graduate and I don't know anything about, finances. I'm not too sure, what networking is, but I'm about to go into a career. And all these thoughts started to hit my, mind. And through conversations with Steph, I think we realized that there was a gap in the education system. The way the curriculum is set up, it focuses a lot on academics and not so much on the skills that you need to navigate life, like financial literacy, like communication, effective communication, building a personal brand. These are the things that make and break your career, the way you manage your expenses. So we wanted to do something about that, and we wanted to create an education community that teaches students aged 14 to 18 about these skills. So I'll hand it over to Steph to add to that.
Yeah, I think definitely with what Zoe was saying, I think for me, when I was kind of growing up, my parents were very, very big on us honing those life skills outside of education. So was very big on us, going to these kind of talks and stuff at school. And then she made us have our own kind of version of a CV when we were growing up, where we kind of just bullet pointed all of the different life skills that we had learned. So as I kind of got older and I started tutoring, it was something that I definitely tried to pass on to the kids that I taught. And when Zoe and I kind of got together and decided to start Doceo Tuition, it was something that we realized, a lot of kids are missing out on. But that was, I suppose, the key or the secret ingredient to success, because without that, your academics can only just get you so far. It does open certain doors, but it doesn't open every door. And it's your kind of ability to, I suppose, integrate your academics with the life skills that, you kind of learn maybe through work or through meeting different people. That's what actually gets you to the next stage. So I think that was definitely our kind of key driving force behind Doceo Tuition. And with that, we just wanted to make sure that we actually went beyond conventional education. So I think for us, if we were to kind of summarize education in a quote or in a phrase, we'd use Albert Einstein's quote, where he kind of said that everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it will grow up thinking that it's stupid. And that's just obviously because, the tree is not built for the fish, nor is the fish built for the tree, but it's expected to kind of take that same approach in life. And I think with Zoe, we kind of just sat down and just thought about how the current education system as it stands is obviously great in the sense that we get a lot of opportunities, but it's too kind of one way, it's too one size fits all. And that just doesn't work for a lot of students, but I suppose predominantly our Black students as well. It just doesn't work for us.
Mm-hmm. what Steph just said, the key points to take away from that quote is that the fish wasn't built to climb the tree. That's not its purpose. That's not what it was created for. And even beyond that, it wasn't given the tools necessary, even if it wasn't made for that, to climb the tree. And there are many parallels to our own lives, that often the way the education system is, like Steph said, very one-size-fits-all model, that students are forced to go down paths that they're not built for. And so they feel like they're not capable, that they're not good enough, when in actual fact, their talent and their gifts are not being utilized in the way that it should be. And even beyond that, even the students that do have maybe those skills, or who are looking to develop them, they are not equipped in the right way to do so. So you have students that fall through the cracks, that have wonderful ideas, that are ready to innovate and change the world, but because they are neglected and their skills aren't nurtured in the way they should be, they don't end up being the person that they could be. And this is something that Steph and I are really passionate about. We meet so many students who are so smart, but you can see the effect of the way that they've been taught to believe that if they're not doing well in science, that they're not good at science. But actually their learning style is different from the way that they're taught in class, and it affects their self-esteem. And it's a feedback loop. If you have low self-esteem and you go into an exam with low confidence, you're not going to achieve what you are capable of achieving. And so they graduate, or they finish education with less grades than they're capable of, and go through their whole life trying to prove themselves, not reaching the heights that they're capable of, all because they weren't put in an environment where they can flourish. Yeah, so what else would you add to that, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree with everything you've said. I think I would also say that as the education system kind of stands, it's very kind of limiting. It kind of puts people in a box. And I think the issue with that is that even if you are, by some kind of stroke of luck, given all of the tools to succeed and to climb that tree, you then don't know what to do after that. Once you've reached the top, what do you do next? There are a few, kind of Black students who do make it through the education system. They do quite well. They have good grades. They make it to university and everything. But then when they get a job with a lot of money, they don't know how to manage their money. And then they end up being bankrupt on a 6-figure salary, which just doesn't make any sense. Because if they had, those kind of foundational skills to actually know how to manage money, that's not something that would happen. There's someone who maybe they get placed in a room with so many motivational people who would actually be able to kind of elevate them and give them opportunities in life, but they can't grasp those opportunities because they don't know how to network. They don't know how to communicate. Or maybe they are there, but then they feel like an imposter because they don't feel like they deserve to be there, or because there's no one else in the room that looks like them. So there's no one for them to actually kind of ask or to show them the way. So there's just far too many, I suppose, aspects of the system which are just lacking. And I think if we were to kind of come together as a community a bit more and provide those aspects to kind of work together with the education system, then it would definitely be a lot better for all students, not just Black students, but I think in particular our Black students, because they do definitely get left behind because they just don't have access to these different, kind of opportunities or these different skills that a lot of other students are kind of picking up along the way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The comment that says they went through schooling rather than education, and I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's not made to actually allow people to think for themselves necessarily, or think innovatively, come up with creative solutions. Creativity is something that really isn't tapped into in school, outside of maybe the art class and the DT class. But creativity is a foundational principle. To be an innovator, to be a trailblazer, you need to be able to look at problems and think of solutions, and also how to practically implement those solutions. But all of that comes through creativity. That's not a skill that's harnessed in school. And I also think that something Steph and I talk a lot about is growth mindset, which is that even if you're not maybe talented in that area, because there's a difference, you can be gifted in a certain area, but you can also develop skills. So growth mindset is the idea that you can build your skills. Just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you can't be, but it's the ability to be able to look past where you are now and see that I can get better at this. and that's what would help you to be able to develop those skills. And a lot of students think that if they're not naturally good at something, if they're not naturally good at maths, if they're not naturally good at, I don't know, physics, then that means I can't do it. But that's not necessarily true. If you put yourself in a place where you're willing to challenge yourself and really push yourself outside the box, then you can learn things that you never thought you would be able to learn. When I was in school, like in primary school, I was never good at English. I always struggled with spelling. When I got to secondary school, I realized that I really loved reading. I loved creative writing. I loved poetry and things like that. And but I just thought that I'm not good at English. I'm not going to be able to, that's just, maths is my thing. But I was encouraged to write, to explore my imagination and stuff like that, and I ended up doing really well in English, and it really surprised me, because I just thought that's not something I'm good at. And I think a lot of students have this mindset, like, I'm not naturally good at this thing, so I'm just going to ignore it. And it's a shame, because people could be so much more well-rounded and have so many more skills if they are just, if they're just bold enough to just try new things. That's what I think.
I think with that, then it's also important that as a community, when we learn those kind of things, we also pass it on to someone else. And it's that kind of knock-on effect of, we share what we've learned with someone else, they then share it with one other person, and everyone as a whole kind of builds and comes up together. Because my younger brother, for example, my mum and I were actually speaking about him the other day, because he's going into year 10 in September. So he's actually changing some of his GCSE options, because he's decided he doesn't want to do them anymore. And my mum was kind of asking me, but what's he going to do in the future if he picks the options he's picked? So I think he's picked geography, DT, and then RS. And then German, that's the language he wants to do. And my mom is kind of worried that he won't be able to go into a profession with those options that he's picked. And I had to really advocate on his behalf and just say, well, it's not so much about him picking subjects to be pigeonholed into what the education system has chosen for him. It's more about him exploring what he feels like he's good at, because he will learn these skills from whatever subjects he does. It doesn't actually really matter what the subjects are. He will pick up the skills he needs to pick up. What's more important is him actually being able to kind of grow in his individualism, being able to kind of find out what kind of student he is and what he actually likes. And then from there, picking a job, a career, a business, whatever it might be, that then might work for him. I think we also kind of need to be very big on advocating for other children that we are either around or that we're teaching, that it's not always the be all and end all for them to kind of pick, maths, English and science, and then kind of go on and do the same, maths, English and science at A levels, and then go to university and do maths, English or science or something like that. I think we should allow them to actually explore that creativity. If they want to do, drama, if they want to do theatre arts, whatever it is that they like to do, that's what they should be allowed to do, and then go forth and learn those kind of leadership skills, and then go forth and be successful.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do think you can guide people. I do think there's value in, making suggestions, like, if you want to do this career, maybe pick these subjects. It's good to guide people, but just like you said, like, allow people to explore what areas they're good at. And I was gonna add something, but now I forgot. I completely lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Another thing that I actually wanted to add as well, I think one of the panelists mentioned it before, with the sense that they tried to communicate certain things to their parents and kind of felt like their parents just told them to kind of get on with it, kind of thing. And I think one thing, I suppose from a student perspective, one thing we can kind of learn or implement is the fact that even if we don't necessarily always feel like we have that support system around us, there are other places we can go to. So nowadays, on Google, you can always kind of type in different questions and things like that, and you'll find a community who kind of shares your beliefs. So if, for example, you've gone to speak to your parents and you feel like they're not necessarily kind of supporting you, you could find a community of students on Google who will actually support you, and you can have a support network in that way. And I think it's just kind of important for us to not limit ourselves, I suppose, to only those who we immediately see. There can be help in like many different forms. There are different ways that we can kind of reach out to people. And I think that's something that at Doceo anyway, we try to do with our students. We don't kind of just limit them to either their classrooms or their year groups. They all kind of interact and integrate with one another, and they all kind of help each other with their community groups.
Yeah, and I now remember what I was going to say. I was going to talk about, you mentioned like the importance of, like helping people that are coming up behind us. And I think that's such an important thing. I think we owe it to the people who are coming up behind us to let them learn about our mistakes, the things that we were struggling with. They shouldn't have to go through that. I mean, there's certain things that everyone will struggle with, no matter, it's just a given. It's part of your development process and you maturing. But then there's also certain things that they don't have to go through. And it's unfair for us to have people in our lives that are going down a route that we went down and not give them the mentorship and the guidance so that they don't make the same mistakes. And that's part of the reason why we set up Doceo, because we realized we've learned so much. Like, we've been through, I've gone from state school to grammar school, and other people are coming up through that kind of path. Other people are looking to, like Black females are looking to get into tech and are worried about, it's there's not that many Black females in engineering and stuff. I try to encourage people from my experience that it's really not that bad. They're just people. Yeah, fair enough, there's no Black people, but you can still make meaningful connections with people who aren't Black. And I feel like through sharing my experience, a lot of people have felt more encouraged and more at ease to pursue like tech routes. But yeah, that's the reason why we set up Doceo.
Okay, guys, thank you. I know, like, I'm sure you could obviously keep speaking and keep sharing. Obviously, because of time, we just have to move on. So please, guys, follow Doceo Tuition on Instagram, and connect with them, engage in conversation. See if anything that you want to follow up on based on what they said. I know there's been quite a lot of engagement around what you said in the comments. So please engage with them further. Take the conversation beyond obviously this platform here, and let's action things in our own settings, and I'm sure they can help and support where possible. So thank you guys once again. I'm going to remove you from the stream now and welcome back our panel. So thank you, Steph, and thank you, Zoe.